Number 10. Michael Afton wasn't really scooped. This is a theory just based off of the parallels that we see between the two characters. One, a night guard from the books, another, Eggs Benedict, aka Michael Afton in Sister Location. Both work at Circus Baby's entertainment and rental, but Eggs Benny works as a technician, and Stanley works as a security guard. Both work the night shift there. Michael has his body scooped and is worn out like a skin suit by Ennard. Stanley has his body filled with mini Renas each night while he sleeps on duty and ends up taking them out, hidden within his body. Of course, how they move to different parts of his body and escape his stomach without somehow killing him, we don't really know. But, you know, FNAF logic. Michael was scooped for goodness sakes, and somehow he still survived the process. MatPat suggests that not only are there similarities about these two characters, but he himself takes the theory a step farther by offering that the story is more a supplement for what really happened to Michael, giving us something a little more realistic. That slowly over time, as Michael worked each night, the animatronics were filling up his body with parts so that he would be able to remain alive, to take them all outside and help them escape after that last night. Still, not super realistic, but definitely more realistic than getting scooped, I guess. Number 9. Foxy Bro is Michael Afton. I once again have to give credit for this one to the brilliant, the one and only MatPat. Of course, I'm still wondering if there might be an even deeper connection to be found in the books between Michael Afton and Crying Child as well, but I think more of those connections come from the survival logbook. But I digress. What proves that Foxy Bro, aka Pete Dinglewood in the books, is Michael Afton? What connects Pete to Mike? Gum. And of course, the color purple. We believe the logbook of course belonged to Mike, and it's there that we find mention of him chewing gum excessively. While in the title story Step Closer from Fazbear Frights issue number 4, we also see a connection in the fact that both characters turn purple and ultimately wind up seemingly dead, though somehow miraculously still alive. Or in Pete's case, at least, still conscious. Both of these connections seem to imply a connection between Peter and Mike, as both of their stories mirror each other's, implying that while Pete is connected to Foxy Bro from the games as a bully brother, Foxy Bro and Mike are also connected. Number 8. Balloon Boy's Hypno Powers. In the story Sergio's Lucky Day, out of the 8th Fazbear Frights book, Gumdrop Angel, we meet Sergio, a businessman who works too hard and, while successful, is unhappy with his life. One day he stumbles upon a Lucky Boy toy, named for the phrase on the t-shirt it wears, which reads, "I'm a lucky boy." The description of the toy seems to match that of Balloon Boy, and it seems to have influence over Sergio, convincing him of what is best for him to do. At first, these just seem like suggestions that Sergio is willing to entertain, and that also align with probably his own inner thoughts and feelings. But in the end, Sergio follows Lucky Boy's advice without any hesitation, even when he suggests that Sergio turn to self-mutilation to win over the woman of his dreams. This seems to imply that Lucky Boy has some kind of hypno powers, which we've seen other animatronics in the books display before, influencing the thoughts of those people they interact with or come across. If this is true, it makes me wonder if Balloon Boy, who Lucky Boy appears to be a smaller version of, might also possess these powers. Does Balloon Boy also have hypno powers? I wonder. Number 7. Who is Eleanor? Eleanor is a character that comes from the Fazbear Fright story To Be Beautiful, which can be found in the first Fazbear Frights book. Eleanor herself appears to be an alternate version of Circus Baby, either another model or perhaps the animatronic model herself, but made to look different for some reason. Now, I know what you might be thinking, hey, but this version of Baby, who MatPat dubbed Giraffe Baby due to her very long neck, doesn't look the same as our version of Baby, as the baby from Sister Location. So how could this be the same baby? Well, Circus Baby had mentioned previously in Sister Location that she got out before, right? So is it possible that this was that adventure? We do know she has compression pins that allow her to alter her appearance, so maybe that's also why she appeared thinner and more stretched out. Maybe she just altered her appearance for some reason. It doesn't explain how she was caught and taken back in, but hey, you could easily explain that with a tracking device that perhaps she didn't know about existing previously, but made sure to remove for her second daring escape. I mean, it's definitely a theory. Number 6. Psychic Friend Fredbear is Tag-Along Freddy. We finally have an official name for this animatronic toy. Psychic friend Fredbear, named by MatPat, is actually Tag-Along Freddy, who appears in the story The Cliffs out of the Fazbear Fright 7th book. Wow, I cannot believe we are already on book 7. I personally was hoping they'd just go with MatPat's name for this toy, but I guess Tag-Along Freddy would probably sell better than Psychic friend Fredbear, unless you're selling to game theorist fans. This is the toy that Tyler wants in the story, and that his father Robert buys for him. The toy also acts as a parental monitor. It watches your child and sends text-based updates to the parent about their well-being. Number 5, a happier ending. In the story The Cliffs, from the 7th installment of the Fazbear Fright story, we follow Robert, who is a single father. I've already talked about Tag-Along Freddy and their connection to what MatPat often refers to as Psychic friend Fredbear, but now it's time to talk about who Robert might be a stand-in for in this story. Robert is a single father who mourns the loss of his wife and worries that as a single parent, he will fail his son Tyler. Oh no! He does his best to monitor Tyler, even buying him the parental monitor and toy that Tyler also wants, Tag-Along Freddy. After Tyler goes missing, Robert is driven to thoughts of taking his own life by Tag-Along Freddy's texts. But ultimately, he does not give in. Gets rid of Tag-Along Freddy instead by throwing him off the cliff, and in so doing finds his son, who is hiding below in a cave. The two reunite and head home, telling stories of Tyler's mom and Robert's deceased wife, Anna. So Robert has a son who he is worried about providing for, a child who cries out, a child who he takes his eyes off of for a moment and who goes missing, and he has a dead wife. Does this sound like someone else we might know? Yeah, Robert is evidently meant to be William, but obviously his and Tyler's ending gives a happier alternative than the ending we think we know, at least from the FNAF game franchise, which has a lot more death and people turning into corpses in it. Number 4, security breach connection. I mean, this one is a hard one to miss, but one that we don't really fully understand just yet, should it be true. Obviously, in the first book, we have the story Into the Pit about a kid named Oswald who goes through a time-traveling ball pit back to 1985. With the 80s theme and a ball pit prominently featured in the trailer of Security Breach, many theorize that there might be a connection from this game to the first book. Is this the same ball pit? Is it possible that the game might somehow be based in 1985 and we'll run into Oswald or time travel through the pit ourselves as Gregory? It's more likely that the game is based in modern day, like we've pretty much been led to believe at this point, but who knows if the beginning of the game might be set in the 80s and it's only through the ball pit that we are able to get to modern day. Who really knows? Other than Scott Cawthon and his team of developers, I mean. They probably know. They know it all. Number 4, the FNAF 3 protagonist. In the final story in the newest Fazbear Frights book, number 8, Gumdrop Angel, we meet Hudson. Hudson ends up working as one of the security guards for the Fazbear Fright attraction. Like the protagonist in FNAF 3, he is plagued by hallucinations, which seem to prey on his fears. This has caused fans to speculate that Hudson, from what we found, could be the protagonist that we play as in FNAF 3. Number 3, hallucinations come to life. Another important fact to note from the story What We Found, featured in the Gumdrop Angel Fazbear Frights book, is that Hudson seems to actually be injured by his hallucinations. Not only that, but his hallucinations differ somewhat from what we experience in the game. Hudson has a tragic backstory, and a lot of his hallucinations revolve around that. The death of his family, the mistreatment he suffered as a kid, and him being bullied by students and teachers alike while at school. This makes us wonder if he's really the protagonist from the games at all, and could perhaps be a different security guard instead. It also makes us wonder if this story, or even any of the Fazbear Fright stories, take place in the same universe as the games, or are considered perhaps an alternate reality. Another important difference in the hallucinations, it's implied that they end up killing him. He is brutally beaten before he seeks refuge from the ghost's animatronic parts and Springtrap in the kitchen's oven. Someone or something then seems to have turned the oven on, which causes Hudson to die, cremated alive. unless you want to assume that the oven somehow malfunctioned, I don't know. Now, in the game, hallucinations could seemingly not hurt you, unless maybe they were more deadly than we were led to believe. Number 2, Evan is the crying child. MatPat did a video all about the idea that Evan is the name of Crying Child. This was actually based on evidence people on Reddit had pointed to from the survival logbook. But this evidence was questioned by MatPat, who suggested that it kind of sounded less stable due to confirmation bias, where people found something compelling and then rather than try to make sure the evidence leading us there was actually quite sound, were more focused on finding more evidence to support what they thought to be true. That's what confirmation bias is, when instead of looking at all the evidence and trying to figure out what's right, you kind of get wrapped up in the idea of like finding evidence that points what you believe to be true. Either way, Evan was the name that was found in the logbook and was the name fans theorized belonged to Crying Child. And while MatPat commended people for finding this evidence, he didn't think the theory was super solid. But he did think that the books might be nudging us in the direction that confirmation bias also was. In the story The Real Jake from the 6th Fazbear Frights book, Blackbird, Jake is the son of Evan. Jake's story not only shares parallels with Crying Child, but his father, Evan, has a brother, and his brother's name? Michael. Number 1, William Afton's grandson? So if this is true, that Evan is Crying Child, the younger brother of Michael, aka Foxy Bro, and the son of William, then that would mean that Jake from the story of The Real Jake is also William Afton's grandson. What's more, this Jake is heavily implied to also be the Jake that we meet in the epilogue stories from the books, the one who ends up sharing the body of the Stitch Wraith with the spirit of Andrew, and who inevitably becomes the sole inhabitant of the dressed up endoskeleton that we know as Stitch Wraith. Jake is also seen as the lighter spirit, as the more positive spirit who only wants to do what is right. Is it possible that the Stitch Wraith and William's grandson could be the key to truly defeating him once and for all? Number 10, Fetch is Sparky. Sparky was a kind of myth that came from FNAF 1. He was a dog that people theorized also existed as an animatronic but was more hidden. Some who refer to Sparky as an Easter egg point to like a poster or a drawing in the game, but you know, it's never been confirmed that Sparky is real or exists or any of that. However, it is possible that this popular fan theory about Sparky's hidden existence could have inspired a real canon animatronic from the books, Fetch. Fetch appears in the second book in the Fazbear Frights series and is a robotic dog who is devastatingly loyal, doing anything to please the person he deems his owner, including kill. Fetch cannot talk and instead communicates via text. Creepy texts. Number 9, Ella is Charlie. This one comes to us from the man, the legend, the hero we all need when it comes to Freddy's lore, MatPat. And the first part of it is pretty self-evident if you are well versed in all of the reading material related to the franchise. But the second part requires a little bit more stitching together. Ella is a doll from the third book in the series, Fazbear Frights number 3, 1:35 a.m. She appears in a story of a woman named Delilah who had always wanted a child to call her own and to make happy after her own childhood was less than desirable. Unfortunately, Delilah was recently divorced and it seemed unlikely that she'd ever get a perfect child. She found Ella at a garage sale whose name echoed the name that she had picked out for her own dream child, Ella. Ella also looked just as Delilah had imagined that her daughter would. She bought Ella and took her home. Ella would end up driving Delilah insane with her alarm clock feature, and this would basically result in her death. But what's really interesting is that Ella's description also matched the description of another animatronic doll, also named Ella, from the Freddy Files book. This doll was one of the various animatronics that Henry made to resemble his daughter. Huh? Number 8, Sister Location Connection. Continuing off from the revelation that Ella is likely the animatronic or one of the animatronics made to represent a younger Charlie, it's also possible that Delilah is the body found in the vents in Sister Location. Sure, she doesn't end up going to an underground location to die in a vent, and is instead attracted to what is described as a 3-story office building that is still under construction, but is it possible that this is the location that would become Sister Location? What if that apparent 3-story office building ended up being Fazbear headquarters, which was later replaced with residential buildings, but the part of the location that was underneath, that was maybe also part of that headquarters, was kept and maintained by the original owners and transformed into Circus Baby's entertainment and rental. I ask you. The timeline is already pretty hard to follow along with, and as of yet is still very much up for debate, so it's possible this could happen. Of course, it's also likely that the dead body that was once found in the Vents and Sister location that is mentioned could just have been a maintenance employee who could have been found while Sister location existed, and not way back when the building was something else and under construction. But still, it's possible. Number 7. Who's really possessing Golden Freddy? This theory comes to us from the story The New Kid out of Fazbear Frights book number 3, 1:35 a.m. Here we learn that there might be more going on with Golden Freddy than we had initially anticipated. We meet a boy named Kelsey, who is a new kid at the protagonist's school. Kelsey is popular and well-liked, but also makes friends with 2 other kids who are outcasts, the other main characters of the story. In the end, one of them, the main protagonist, we could say, Devin, gets jealous and plots to scare Kelsey by trapping him in a Golden Freddy suit left in an abandoned Freddy's pizzeria. However, this all goes horribly wrong when Kelsey seemingly is killed by the spring locks in the suit, which of course malfunction, but in the end the guilt ends up leading Devin to return to the pizzeria and causes him to get his arm stuck and crushed in the Golden Freddy's jaw. What he sees within the suit seems to suggest that both Kelsey, who is likely a stand-in for Cassidy, the vengeful spirit, and the crying child might both haunt this animatronic. Number 6. Golden Freddy, robots in disguise. Maybe? To continue on this theory, I have my own twist as to what could really be going on with Kelsey and Golden Freddy. The story of The New Kid also seems to imply that Golden Freddy is in fact Kelsey, at least in a way. What I mean is that somehow Golden Freddy was able to change form and perhaps disguise himself as a human boy for the purpose of luring others into his trap, or at least create some kind of manifestation that was Kelsey, because I know they both exist in the same place at the same time, but just hear me out. The points that suggest that Kelsey is the true spirit of Golden Freddy, or perhaps the animatronic himself, is Devin's reaction to Kelsey, who feels strangely compelled to stab his newfound perfect friend to check if he's a robot, which is pretty weird. And while MatPat suggests Kelsey's eye color could be a reference to the vengeful spirit, the color of blue is also similar to the color of Freddy's eyes. Now, while Golden Freddy only has 2 white pinprick-sized lights for eyes, or is depicted as having no eyes at all, we could surmise that his eye color, if he had proper ones, would be shared with the model he's closest to, the mascot Freddy Fazbear. So his blue eyes could also be another loose connection to Freddy and thereby Golden Freddy. Number 5. Kelsey is Andrew. Okay, one more theory here for you in regards to the New Kid story. Some fans seem to think that Kelsey could be some kind of manifestation of Andrew's spirit. They believe the corpse that Devin sees when he looks into the Golden Freddy while his arm remains stuck is actually that of Andrew's, and that Andrew was one of the victims of the man in room 1208, who is likely William Afton. Andrew is a vengeful spirit who attached his soul to the man who hurt him, so that he'd never be able to pass on or achieve peace. It's believed that Andrew could have at some point been attached to Golden Freddy, and could be the crocodile-masked victim. Another theory, as Andrew's spirit is seemingly gone now, is that Andrew's anger-filled touch at one point infected Golden Freddy, making it lash out, seeking vengeance, and causing the spirits within it to become more aggressive and murderous. To become vengeful spirits. Number 3. 1985 location is the Pizzaplex? Huh? Let me just start by saying this is a very loose theory based off of the description of what Oswald sees in Into the Ball Pit and built around details from Happiest Day, the minigame. These 2 events seem to be one and the same. Well, Happiest Day being a minigame retelling of that day, but these murders didn't seem to happen the way we'd expect with the children being stuffed into suits. Instead, a bunny figure lays them out in the 1985 location that Oswald travels to for all to see. Who else do we know that resembles a bunny and is a villain? Vanny, William Afton's reluctant follower, and in the Happiest Day minigame, what other masks do we notice the children wearing that we walk past? A gator and a wolf. Perhaps Montgomery Gator and Roxanne Wolf. Could this mean that the murders took place in the original Pizzaplex, which we'll either visit in Security Breach or at least hear the story of? Is it possible that the Pizzaplex is another relaunch and reopening of an older location that was closed due to these original murders which happened in 1985? But if they happened in 1985, was Vanny there? Were they the one that did it? Or is this like a recreation? I don't know. I swear, if we do some time traveling in Security Breach, my mind is going to be broken. I'm going to be like, there's no way we can piece together this timeline now. As soon as you put time travel in, woo, that's too much. Number 2, robots among us. Something we seem to learn through a few stories from the books is that animatronics can be made to resemble and even take on the lifelike appearance of humans. If this is true, who is to say that many of the principal human characters we have met so far in the games might not also be animatronics? William himself is already kind of there, having his consciousness uploaded into a game, and Michael, well, he somehow survived being scooped and being turned into a suit for ground-up animatronics to wear, and then vomited up said blended animatronics without then having insides of his own left, and yet he still survived all of that. How is that even possible unless he's an animatronic or a wizard? And while Michael being a wizard sounds like a whole Magical Academy franchise waiting to happen that would be a weird, maybe awesome spin-off of FNAF, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if we went there at this point, even though it'd be super strange. It seems more likely that based on what we know, that Michael himself could be a robot, built by William to appear like a son. In a way, aren't all the animatronics that William's built at this point kind of like his children? Number 1, the real motivation behind the murders. So this one is kind of a leap based on theories we have already discussed here. It doesn't specifically relate to a specific book or a story so much as it has been inspired by theories that came from specific books and stories. You with me? Okay, so if we see animatronics in the books that resemble humans, and if you believe that it's possible that Michael himself could be an animatronic created by William, possibly to act as a new son or to replace Crying Child, who perhaps Michael was made to resemble, is it possible that this whole murder thing has been an attempt towards not just bringing back the children he's lost, but to work towards some kind of evolution for humans? Maybe William's mad science is less about murder and more about helping, in his own twisted way, humans to evolve. Just go with me here. As humans, there are many things that we can't do, but that machines can. Perhaps these experiments were William's way of seeking immortality for humans, and all of this has been one crazy experimental trial to discover if it's possible to fuse human souls to robots, or animatronics, if you will, so that we might move past our fleshy shells and evolve into something greater, something more. It's just a theory, of course, but it would make sense as to why William tries to keep Elizabeth away from Circus Baby, but says he made the creation for her. The transfer or bonding process wasn't perfected yet, but he intended to move her consciousness from her human body to the animatronic when the process was perfected. And that's also why Circus Baby was made to shapeshift. He would have been able to calibrate her ideally to Elizabeth's form, so she'd even look the exact same, and in theory be able to shift and age as she grew up, and basically be immortal because she'd never die. I'm just saying, maybe William was trying to help this whole time, but then he kind of lost his mind in doing that as his children, passed on, and so now everyone's a robot and it's all a mess.